It's a great privilege to be here for the second time at MRW. Last year I had the opportunity to share a bit about what we do around data through mobile, and this year we have advanced a bit on how we use social insights and use it for engaging customer engagements in our campaigns. So I'd like to share a bit about Indonesia. Maybe you're all familiar about the big changes that's been happening. So this is the 2004 presidential election. As you can see, very few digital devices being held by the consumers at that time. This was the presidential election. And this is the election about 2 years ago. You see everybody holding their mobile devices, making them basically citizen journalists. So we realized that this kind of opportunity is something that we need to take advantage of. If you think about it, the mobile device is a collection of technologies. So there's a saying that if you give an Indonesian a mobile phone today, he's more knowledgeable probably than US presidents 20 years ago, because there's so many technologies being compressed in one smartphone and data being produced from this small device. So Indonesia is essentially the hyper-social mobile first nation, we call it. If you look at some of the data, we spend the most time on smartphone, among the highest globally, so about 5 hours a day, more than TV, desktop, newspaper, and radio combined. And if you look at additional data, for example, internet users, by 2020, Indonesia will be the 6th largest internet base globally. If you look some of the social media data, we essentially lead in terms of the usage. So if we look at, for example, Twitter itself, there are more tweets coming in from Jakarta than all of these big cities combined, whether it's Tokyo, London, or New York. So some of you probably don't use Twitter anymore, but in Indonesia it's still being heavily used. So the data that's being produced from social media is immense. So some of the interesting behaviors is that the first thing that they touch in the morning and before they go to sleep at night is the mobile, the smartphone, right? Even in the toilet, we check our status updates, right? And we sometimes do selfies. But essentially, the social media platform is definitely a big source of data that we could leverage. So the analogy is something like the fridge, right? Sometimes you're hungry and sometimes you don't, but you keep on opening the fridge and see what's happening, right? Or is there anything good to eat, and then you start commenting or you start munching. It's like snacking. So on average, we touch our smartphone screens about 120 times a day. So if you can summarize it, Indonesia is the social media capital of the world. So what happens if we start listening? So we realized this early on that insurance as a category is something that is having the lowest frequencies of engagements with our customers. If you think about it, you buy an insurance product, and then you might interact with the brand maybe once a year when you see the statement, or if you receive your policy. So we need to understand better our customers through new technologies, in this case social media. So we invested in a social listening platform about a year ago. So the way it works is essentially scouring all the data from different online media, and it will collect in a chronological and logical way, and we process the data to separate essentially the signal from the noise. So I'd like to share a bit on how we leverage social media and also mobile to essentially create an engaging campaign for our health solution products. So what's interesting about Indonesia is about 3% of the Indonesian population have insurance. So that leaves us with 97% of education needed to be done. So one of the key lifestyle trends from social media conversation, we realized that yoga has been taking over the health industry by storm. So we wanted to take opportunity from this yoga. And we also realized from the social media conversations that it is very important for families to stay healthy, but they essentially don't know how to do it. So we created the first integrated family health campaign but we wanted to take it a step further because we realized that the questions that they were asking is, what is actually a healthy lifestyle? What is actually work-life balance? Is there such a thing? And how often do I need to communicate about health in my family? So we saw an opportunity to actually create something new. Actually, we step it up a new level, and we wanted to create a movement. So we created what's called the Ayo Sehat Indonesiaku, which is the first national health movement to inspire Indonesians to be healthy and think about health protections for their future. So the way we ignited the interest from our consumers is by throwing out an interactive survey. So usually surveys are being done by research companies. So we happen to have an internal research team that cooks up the questionnaires, and we made it interactive. So we have a mobile app, we have a web app that essentially makes the survey process digital. So this, for example, we're asking the eating habits at home. So do you work, do you eat with your family, or do you eat by yourself at any time? So the questionnaire process is being done in a fun way. And then we took it up another notch. Essentially, we visualized the data, and we created what's called the first AXA Health Index. Essentially, it's a set of questionnaires that essentially combines the BMI score as well as the health and lifestyle behavior of the users. And we were able to collect more than 4,000 data points across Indonesia nationwide for each province. So essentially, this data was also shared back to the consumer because essentially they wanted to know how they compare to the other peers across the provinces in Indonesia. We also created a mobile app to collect the data. So interesting that what Alibaba was using earlier, but essentially we also thought about how we can use mobile to enhance our customer data. So in this case, we use content to actually rule in the consumers. So we created yoga education videos, and also we created a health directory to go, for example, healthy eating places to see, and as well as a 30-day challenge competition prior to a big event that we created. So all of these different activities helped us to ensure that the active users of the application keep on logging in to the application so we could collect more data. So we ended up pushing it to the next level. We invited users to join us to break a national record. If you can play the video.
Ibu selalu mengajak dokter untuk hidup sehat, kapanpun dan dimana saja, karena sehat itu menyenangkan.
Sehat untuk kamu dan keluarga, untuk hari ini dan masa depan. Mari ajak keluarga untuk hidup lebih sehat. Ayo sehat Indonesia.
So pitch was join us for the biggest ever yoga event in one day across 3 cities. It was held in Bali, in Uluwati Temple, in Prambanan in Jogja, and in Monas. And all of the activities is being live streamed on YouTube. So essentially, we wanted to essentially set a new standard of what a health movement should look like in the digital age. And this is the event result. If you can play the video, please. biggest yoga event ever was held in India, of course, combined with 20 ashrams, and it was probably 8,000 people. So probably the next game is that, because we had more than 3,000 people across the 3 locations. So essentially, with basically just social listening insights and the health data that we collected, we were able to get these results, about 3,000 people joining the events in offline, so high quality engagements. We broke the national record for the biggest yoga event, and it was the first live stream event across 3 cities on YouTube ever in Indonesia. And then also we had more than 31,000 people downloading the application to enrich our database. And the video itself, because it was such something interesting to watch, it was watched by more than 1.3 million people, as well as becoming the national trending topic on social media. So our hashtag Ingat Sehat or Think Healthy became a social media trend. This is the case study video that summarizes all the different activities in about 3 minutes. If you can play the video. What's interesting to note here is that all the integrated activities that we do, we all always connected to the business, essentially to our sales. So all the data that we collected, we asked for opting into the telemarketing team, so they were able to follow up for the health solution products. So during that month, we actually had tripled our conversion rates in our telemarketing business, because people were very aware about the brand and also very interested and very concerned about their health. So essentially all the integrated activities is actually driving back to the business, not just staying at the data point. So the next logical step for us after doing all this is how can we make the social media listening infrastructure an always on thing. So we came up with this thing called the Social Media Command Center, which was the first command center at AXA globally, because we realized that for a brand to continuously engage with consumers, we need to create content daily, and how we're able to do that internally, and we realized that we needed an always-on infrastructure to create that. So usually a command center would only have listening stations, analytical stations, but ours is a bit different. We have a content production team within the command center. So essentially the command center will function as a gathering point to actually engage many different stakeholders within the organization to actually drive insightful and data analysis in real time using data visualization, and also extend the dialogue beyond consumers to our partners and to our internal stakeholders as well. This is the visual of the command center. So it is located in the same floor where our CEO sits. So it's an open space where people can come in and look at different data points and listen to the voice of the consumer. We have a couple of screens within the room to actually visualize the data from, we use the Salesforce.com Radiant 6 platform to essentially hear and analyze the trends happening in social media conversations. And within the same room, we have a small media studio, essentially to produce video content, because we know that video is the next big thing, essentially in real time. So from the insights that we gather in social media, we can actually respond immediately and following the trends and engage with the consumer to topics that they want to listen to. Because essentially, nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks about insurance, but people talk about their kids, people talk about health, and these are the types of content that we create. So essentially, beyond just listening, it has additional functions. So we provide insights, that will be the primary role. But the second thing is to provide consistent video content. And the third thing is we also train our agents to also become digital. So the distribution transformation around social media is very key. So we're also training them to be present in platforms such as LinkedIn and Facebook to actually create content on their behalf, on our behalf, and also being responsive to our customer through the social media platforms. So the process itself will be similar to this, where we will listen to the different insights that we get from the conversations. We will produce the content, and then we will see after we publish the content which ones are performing the best, and also this would determine our editorial calendar the next weeks. So the entire process is actually very dynamic. Think of us becoming a media company, and something like a mini CNN or BBC, where essentially the internal content team will look at different content that the consumer wants. So this is the showcase video of our command center. since then, the command center idea has been replicated in our headquarters in Paris, and many other countries are also joining to build this infrastructure, because this is something logical for insurance companies to build, because we need to be closer to our customers through the content that they want. So here are some ideas about the future evolution of our social media command center. Very soon, the command center will become just a digital command center to gather all the different data points that we collect, whether it's maybe sales data, distribution data, and we'll have these command centers throughout the building for people to actually see and understand what we can do with the data. So giving insights to many different functions across the organization that is easily being digested on a daily basis. The second thing is we want to move away from being just reactive to being proactive through content. So we want to create something called the AXA TV, essentially sort of a live streaming event that is regular on our YouTube channel. Essentially, suddenly we don't talk about insurance anymore, but become a lifestyle brand through video content. Number three is also to train our organization to become higher in their digital IQ and ensure that the data-driven culture is being implemented through the command center. So we want people to make better decisions in a day-to-day business. Number four is also in the lead management process. A lot of the online and offline conversions of the customer data is actually very difficult to track right now, but some ideas around offline tracking in the retail space is also something that we're exploring to see how many of our marketing spends, both online and offline, is actually driving sales through our agents. And the last thing is the cross SMCC collaboration globally. So we want to build a network of command centers globally. So for example, if some Indonesians would like to go to Malaysia, but they don't know where to go, our Malaysian team can actually create content around tips, 10 things to do in Malaysia on vacation. Vice versa, maybe a lot of Malaysians would like to go to Bali, but they don't know how Bali is. We can create the content for the Malaysian team. So we essentially become a lifestyle media company. Essentially, these are the takeaways from the SMCC section, and that's all from me. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Hi, thank you. It was a very inspiring, movement that you're doing here. One question on the SMCC.
Yes.
So you said it was kind of an open platform and people were coming in and visiting. Where have you seen the most effect in collaboration when what kind of divisions or people with roles come in?
So the definition of the SMCC is actually evolving over time. So one particular example is, for example, HR. We used to use the traditional process to recruit people, but now we realize an opportunity to do employer branding through social media. So our first thing is we train our HR team to be active on LinkedIn and to see how we can use LinkedIn to promote people to join an insurance company, because insurance is not the first thing that people think about the careers. So we created the first employee branding campaign in the region called #ProudOfAXA. So we allowed our employees with certain guidelines to promote what they do at work, and we wanted our employees to actually be active in promoting how fun it is to work at AXA. So what's important to note here is the top management is key in driving the digital transformation culture. So our CEO, our BOD, is actually promoting this particular #ProudOfAXA, and they would engage with the employees openly on social media on different topics. So essentially, we leverage the social media command center to create an open culture at the organization with a hashtag that we can track. And essentially about 80% of all the AXA Asia conversation now is being driven through the employee engagement activities that we do in Indonesia. So we even go as far as giving out incentives to our employees for using the #ProudOfAXA. So we give out like shopping vouchers for the top 3 employees to actually promote how fun it is working for AXA, right? Because there will always be people who like and dislike working for certain companies, but we want to create positive conversations around our brand so we can attract more millennial and digital talents who are ready to change our industry to become a digital insurance company. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any further questions? Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to to know what the impact was on your bottom line from that campaign. How many sales sign-ups did you get?
Yes, so for the yoga activity, it's actually increased, it doubled our lead generation campaign. So what's interesting for us is we started early on, about 3 years ago in digital. Well, it's not a long time, but the challenge for a lot of brands is still that digital marketing investment stops at brand engagements, right? So all of our campaigns, we measure on a performance and engagement basis. Performance meaning how many leads we capture on a campaign, and also the cost per lead that we produce. We're now moving on cost per sale metrics for our campaigns. Essentially, it's a metric that we push to our media agencies to ensure that they drive down the cost per sale conversion over time. And we see what kind of engagement activities is actually helping us drive down the conversions cost at the end. So we are seeing that, as I shared earlier, that when we do very interesting engagement activities such as the yoga, we see that the number of leads increases while the cost per conversion to sales has been decreasing. So this yoga is probably driving us about 5,000 leads in about 2 months. Essentially from people who probably didn't consider an insurance product before, but we were able to enter through the interest of yoga.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? I have one. Is that video available on YouTube?
Yes, you can type in the keyword AXA social media command center. It should be the only video on YouTube.
Thank you. I'm going to show that to my social media manager and break his heart, really. That's really
Awesome.
good. So thank you. Put your hands together once more.
Thank you.